Doesn't matter.
Hi, everybody. We are so excited to have Karen here with us. She did our one-on-one nutrition coaching program recently, and she's had a lot of different successes. Karen, hi, nice to see you.
Hi, it's good to see you.
So, Karen, tell us a little bit about where your health and your nutrition was prior to joining the program, and like what was the big spark to you wanting to jump in?
So health-wise, I was kind of a mess coming into the program.
Okay.
I'd been having issues that just made me uncomfortable, didn't want to really work out. I ended up having my gallbladder removed, and I figured that was a good starting point for learning. I wanted to relearn nutrition. That for me, I had a lot of motivation. I knew I needed to get healthier, but I didn't know where to start, so I needed the education.
Love it. And you
Yeah.
worked with our registered dietitian, so you felt like there was a level of expertise that could help you knowing you had your gallbladder removed and to kind of teach you for the first time in your life what to do.
Yeah, she was wonderful. I learned so much from Alma. Just I didn't know that I wasn't eating enough protein, or enough calories in my day. So when I did go to try to work out, I felt lightheaded and nauseous, and then I didn't want to work out, and it just was a downward cycle. So just changing my nutrition and getting enough protein and balance just made a huge difference. I actually felt energetic when I worked out.
I love hearing that. Now, um, then we'll talk about non-scale victories, but just for a moment, what was that journey like for you, knowing that weight loss was one of the goals,
Mhm.
to actually eat more food? How scary was that for you? What happened during that time as far as your results for that?
Yeah, I was a little skeptical. To me, in my brain, it didn't make sense to eat more food. But it was a switch of what kind of food I was eating.
Yeah,
So that was huge. And there were days that like I'd get to the end of the day and I'm like, I need more protein. I need to eat more calories. So I would, be eating cottage cheese with blueberries at, 7 o'clock at night, trying to get enough in. And it made a huge difference in how I felt and how I looked.
and so eating more, you actually felt better and
Yes.
your body composition moved in the right direction.
Yes.
Did that
Yes.
blow your mind, obviously?
It did. Not what you hear every day that, you always hear you should diet and reduce your calories and I've never been a really big dieter
Yeah.
because I don't like being deprived, but just in what I was naturally eating every day, I was really dieting. I didn't know it.
Yeah. And did you find that through this process of what Alma led you through in the one-on-one coaching, there's actually an intentful and purposeful bucket, if you will, where you can actually enjoy some indulgences, whether it was a cupcake or glass of wine or cheese. You found that it didn't have to be this really strict regimen, that there was some wiggle room for some indulgences. Did you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. I never felt deprived at all while I was doing this. And making small choices and it's a gradual program. It's not like you start the first day and change everything.
Yeah.
So it's a gradual, you're slowly increasing certain nutrients, slowly increasing the protein. But I felt totally comfortable going out to eat with friends
Good.
and having one glass of wine instead of two or three.
Wonderful.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you finished this program a while ago. So it's
Mhm.
it's been a while. It's not like you just stopped 3 weeks ago.
Right.
What what have you been able to maintain as far as the lifestyle, the habits, the choices from what you learned all of this time outside of the coaching?
So I've been doing really well with keeping it up. I'm no longer tracking everything on my tracking app. Um, but what I've learned and Just visually the proportions of food on the plate, making the right choices of maybe I order a salad instead of the French fries. Um, and I did cut back a lot on the alcohol,
Yeah.
and I don't really miss it. I'm good with that. Um, my scale has not changed since I stopped tracking everything, which I think is great progress.
You're working to maintain at this point. You're
Hmm.
happy with where you're
Yep,
at. That's huge.
yep, yep.
Maintenance, I think, is sometimes the harder phase to be in.
Mm,
This is because we are so used to dieting and cutting and, just holding back. And it's like you actually want to eat and fuel your body and work it out. So it's good to know that you're there and you're enjoying it and it's steady for you.
yeah, yep.
Good. And so a big part of this program, of course, is the education, like you said, folding it in every week and learning. But another big part of this is the accountability. Would you say that there were any like hurdles that you came over by working directly with a one-on-one coach on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, I think having a one-on-one coach really helps with that accountability factor because I knew at the end of the week I was going to be logging all that in to the computer and somebody else was going to be looking at it. Um, and I'm one of those students from school. I always like to get A's.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so, but it does help to have the accountability. And also she was great about, if I messed up for a few days, that it wasn't like a guilt trip. It was very much, okay,
yeah,
so you went off a little bit. Let's get you back on track.
absolutely.
And that felt really good. Just having that little guidance, little steering. And I knew she was creating the program for me, which I think is really nice to be able to, I wanted to have a low fat diet. I wanted to work with the gallbladder issues. I wanted to, and she was great about being really mindful of all that.
That's wonderful. It's
Mhm.
nice to know it's not just another template thrown out to another woman. Hey, just do this, just eat
Yeah,
these things, but it's really about what's going on with your health, your goals, and your starting point for
yeah,
sure. It doesn't surprise me to hear that she was obviously patient and compassionate to some of those times, like you said, like, hey, let's get you back on track. We had 2 or 3 days of this. And I think that improves our relationship with food because I've been that person that's like, oh my gosh, I went off the rails this last Sunday. And it's like all of a sudden you want to knee jerk to the other end on Monday and barely eat and do a bunch of cardio to make up for it. It's like, no, that's part of that like yo-yo process that drives us
right.
crazy. So it's nice to hear that that's stabilized for you as well.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned a little skepticism when it comes to like her encouraging you to eat more. Was there any other skepticism about like the program or yourself that maybe hesitated to you jumping in?
Yeah, so before I started into this, I was working at another gym. Um, and it sounded great at first, but the way they set it up, it really was just run people through
Mm,
type of program.
mm.
Wasn't customized. I think it was geared really for 25-year-olds, not someone my age. I injured myself several times there, and because nobody was paying attention to the form of what I was doing. Um, so I guess I was a little skeptical of, okay, is this really going to be a program that's customizable? The nutrition part is huge, but also the working out part. Um, and it did not take long to be like, okay, these are people who really care about my progress and where I'm going. And I felt like the whole program was invested in me as much as I was in it.
Good. That's important because if you are going to put in the time and the energy and the effort, you want to have someone who's going to meet you there as a coach and not just again template it or turn you through as a number. So I'm very glad to hear that. And for anybody who is watching this that is contemplating jumping into a program, is wondering if they have self-doubt, if they can show up for themselves, stay consistent, what advice, knowing now you kind of crossed over that bridge, like what would you give them for advice to get started?
I would say just get started. That's the hardest part. And the first few workouts, you're like, oh, this is a little harder than I thought, but it gets a lot easier. And then when you pair in the nutrition part, it gets a whole lot easier. And once you start seeing the results, that just fuels you to want to keep going with it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, any other last words? Any other last thoughts?
I just would encourage anybody to do this. I think it's a really good program. There's so many options that you all offer, whether it's the workouts, the strength building, the nutrition, and kind of mixing it all together. I've been really happy.
I'm so glad to hear that. And, I just remember you seemed really ready to jump in. And I think that there's something to be said about that, but also there's something to be said about people who aren't ready. You kind of figure it out as you go and it unfolds. And to watch you kind of go from where you were to where you are now, and even doing our small group strength training, watching you use barbells, like knowing that your body is fueled for it, you are set up for decades of a strong, healthy body. And that's the most exciting part of it all.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. Well, thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate it.
Thank you.